confident in my ability to deliver that, but that wasn't overnight. Your question there is to be like, how do you create that? I think repetition, to believe in myself that I have something to contribute. And so when I was in moments of doubt creatively, I would get very angry and frustrated. And in that anger, I started asking like myself, like, what do you want to make?
Welcome everyone to another episode of Brosseau Nation presents Beyond the Athlete podcast. I'm your host, Coach David, and today we have Marc V Brosseau. He's going to correct me if I say his name wrong again, but I'll get it right by the end of this podcast. So Marc is a creative, a cultural pioneer, sneaker designer, currently a senior footwear designer at Adidas, and I know he does a lot more. If you actually go onto his Instagram page, he does it beyond sneakers as well, and hopefully he's going to talk to us about his creative process, how his mind works when it comes to creativity, and yeah, I'm looking forward to the conversation. So Marc, thank you for joining us today. It's really amazing to have you on board for this podcast. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here, and you nailed the name.
Oh, good.
Since I've lived in the U.S. for like 10 years, I usually go by just Marc VB because that simplifies it for everyone.
Yeah.
And so thanks for having me.
Thank you. So basically, this podcast, we started it to really speak to people and individuals like yourself who are shaping culture, whether it's in the sneaker world, whether it's in the sports world, whether it's around creativity, entrepreneurship, and really kind of connect this with a lot of the younger guys, especially athletes that play within our community as Brosseau Nation, and young people all over the world as well. Because there's a lot of people like yourself that a lot of creators and even non-creators don't get to see or don't get to hear from. So this podcast is really a platform for them to really hear who the guys and ladies behind the scenes are of your favorite brands, your favorite sneakers, etc. So I'm quite honored that you said yes to this. And I would say my first question would be, as much as I've introduced you, is there anything that you would add to that introduction and tell us who Marc is a bit more?
I mean, you hit it on the nose pretty well. I am a professional footwear designer, and I work for Adidas. I've been at Adidas for 2 years.
Okay.
Before that, I was at Reebok in Boston for 8 years. And before then, I was a design student back in Canada, where I grew up. I'm from Quebec. My path to design came through athletics, so I relate to the mission of the podcast. Nice. Because I started on the athletic side. I was a biathlete, and it was my love of the gear that kind of drove me into design.
Yeah.
So, at first for me, the absorption of that kind of culture was through, on the sports side, like through the main athletes that I aspired to be on the level of.
Yeah.
And then when I was sponsored by Rossignol, and when I got to see a bit of the behind the scenes and the guy who made the machine work, I became more interested on what was behind the those faces.
Yeah.
Those athletes, you know, an athlete has a certain like lifespan and a peak. Like if I had kept my career right now, I'd be like at my peak or at the end of my career. But I saw that these guys who had transitioned into behind the scenes, like they had the longevity. They really create like another level of legacy. And I just loved being creative. So it was a smooth transition from like the competitive nature of sport to like the nature of an industry that has like a lot of demand, like footwear and also like just design in general. I think it's an interesting job, so it attracts a lot of talent. So it's a very competitive field. So that's me, and I guess my relevancy to like your audience
comes from the athletic side, definitely. And I'm glad that you kind of spoke about sort of the process of how you started from being an athlete to design school and then coming into what you are today. So this pretty much leads into my next question. Well, before my next question actually, it's almost quite similar to myself because I come from two backgrounds. One majorly fashion. My mom and dad were both designers. My mom still designs now anyway. So my love for all things design, all things creativity came from that. But annoyingly, I don't know how to hands-on design. I have the ideas in my head, I can give it to someone and they can sketch it out and make it. So I'll give her ideas of this is how I want this shirt to look like and all sorts, and she'll make it. But when it comes to actually physically designing, I have no clue where to start basically. But I think that my own way of designing has come in the space of the basketball side of things now, because it's the game that I love. So those ideas that I have from designing, I've kind of embedded it into what we do with Basketball Nation in terms of how creative we are with engaging with the younger generation and kind of giving them a platform to become whatever they want to be in beyond basketball as well, which is why the title is called Beyond the Athlete. So obviously I know how my process works now because I truly believe I'm working in my purpose now. So my next question to you would be, like, if you can share some insights into sort of like your personal design philosophy and how it aligns with especially sneaker culture now and even the younger generation also.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very fluid thing. Some things never change.
Okay.
But the skin of it is always different. It requires a lot of, at least from the way that I work, I use my gut intuition a lot.
Good, nice.
Growing up, I was always like just ahead of the trend, but like just ahead enough for like the high school kid that I went to be like that. It wasn't like cool, like it wasn't mass cool. It was just like weird a little bit. But then I would be like, why is it? I would just be on just a little early. And I've always, my taste has always been like just a little early. Like even in, it doesn't, my interest for that doesn't span just in terms of footwear, but like fashion. I'm a big car guy.
Oh, amazing.
So I've made a couple like buying cars and selling, like I've rarely lost money on cars just because I always bought cars with like, people are gonna, in 2 years, like this car is gonna be hot. Right now I can get one for nothing. On that, with motorcycles and stuff. And so, well, I've turned that into like very like useful skill because it takes 18 months, you know, on average to bring a shoe to production.
Right.
So it's like being 2 years ahead. It means that like when the shoe comes out, like it's primed for being hot.
Yeah.
Because people like the way they absorb things is, unless you have like someone like Kanye who is known as like a forward thinker, and people, it opens the mind to like newness. In general, people like this intersection, almost like supply and demand between newness and recognizability. And that recognizability factor is like really important. It's having just enough newness to make you uncomfortable and feel like you've never seen this before. But you have to be comfortable with the idea of what it is enough to be like, to relate to it. So that's where I really work on getting that balance right. And it's all about like a feeling. I work a lot with emotion. I ask myself constantly, does this make me feel something? Is it a good feeling? Is it a bad feeling? Like, I really have spent a lot of time adjusting my personal emotional thermometer to the way that things look and feel. And I ask my junior designers that I work with, like, what does this make you feel? Like, it's, they might be more in tune to another part of the culture, whether that be TikTok or, being closer to coming out of school and being like in those bigger groups of people. As you get older, your kind of group gets smaller, so sometimes you can create a bubble for yourself.
That's true.
So at least LA is nice, like, it's been easier than Boston to like really be in tune with culture, but also LA, it's its own thing. Like, there's definitely a difference between the look in LA and like the look in, Bushwick, New York, right? So it's really being sensitive to those little gauges. I spent a lot of time doing that. My interest always been on the, like, technically on the performance side. I love bringing innovation into technology, combining technology, but then also my love of fashion. So I've always worked in the like gray space between performance or using the tech from that world and making products that most of the time could live up to the scrutiny of performance products, but really like at the end get used like a fashion product. So like, think of like Air Max at Nike, that kind of like, sportswear world. I hope that answers the question.
No, it answered, no. I like your answer because there was a lot of things in there, and for me, I wanted to know almost like where did that emotional standards that you have, like in terms of how you regulate your emotions, in terms of how you design, where did that come from? Because it's not something that would have just appeared within you. Like, where do you think that kind of stemmed from? Maybe from your upbringing, maybe someone that, maybe where you grew up, or maybe family, etc. Where do you think that's come from, really?
Well, so I grew up in a little a French city across from Ottawa. It's not a very fashionable place. I mean, there's worse, but it wasn't like, I grew up in magazines, skate magazines, snowboard magazines, like rock and hip hop magazines, and it was always like, dreaming, like I lived close to them, and so like now I'm like where I dreamed of being in places like this, and there was always like a book associated with a culture that I wanted to be a part of, but that culture didn't necessarily exist where I lived, and I would like emulate it, but like always feel like an outcast. And so a lot of always like, oh, I'm doing this because I love it, but I'm a weirdo. And that like outsiders feeling is what a lot of designers feel, I think. But like, it's a feeling that a lot of people can relate, and what that creates is when you get to become a designer, it for me it created like a lot of imposter syndrome, and or like proving to myself several times that like I knew what I was doing. Like you go through, it's like I don't know what I'm doing. You get an idea, you're like, this is the best idea ever. Then as you refine it, you're like, you look at it for a year, and you're like, this is the worst thing ever. Then it comes out, and then everyone else might see, or not everyone, but some will see what you put into it, and then you're like, okay, I'm not crazy. Like, I was onto something. After, you know, a decade of doing that, I've come to, now I'm like confident in my ability to deliver that, but that wasn't overnight. Your question's very astute to be like, how do you create that? I think repetition, to believe in myself that I something to contribute, and so when I was in moments of doubt creatively, I would get very angry and frustrated. And in that anger, I started asking like myself, like, what do you want to make? What, like, because we always create for a specific consumer in mind. But if you attune your own, let's call it empathy towards that consumer, and you can put yourself in those shoes, you can still use your own taste barometer if they're within the, like, some people can't detach their own taste from the product, right?
Absolutely,
but some can mold it within the lens, like for example, like a way that I would gauge myself is like, when I was in college, I hated the color orange. For some reason, you kind of have to outgrow that, because like as a designer, like all colors have value, but it's about context. But I started designing everything with hits of orange.
Wow.
It happened by accident, because like it was the only marker that I was broke, and it's the only marker I didn't use, so it's the only one I had left that wasn't dry. But when I drew with orange and it felt good, it was like, within the scope of me not liking this, I can still make it work and I still get excited about it. Then there was value to that.
Right.
So yeah, just, it's really about trusting yourself. You know, when people let you into a room too, like professionally, they see something in you. I mean, there's good managers and not so good managers out there, but like in general, people bring you in for a reason. And you have to trust in them too, that their taste is that they saw something in you, and you're here to bring something to the table. So just trying to like that, like that's where I'm transitioning in my career, is kind of like you, shifting towards younger designers. And being like, hey, you know, there's stuff that I can do, and there's stuff that I can teach you, and I have experiences. But the market has shifted, and you're here to bring freshness to reinvigorate my taste and open my eyes to things I might not be aware of. Again, long.
No, please, just be as comfortable as you want to be, because I like this, because I want it to be conversational and very open as well, because that's how I am, even with people around me as well. My brother here, that's in here, will testify also. For myself, it's almost like, I understand where you're coming from as well, because for me, I had to really gauge my emotions over time, because I would have 1,000 ideas in my head, and it's almost like I would doubt myself, thinking like, why is it that I have all these ideas but I can't do nothing with it? Like, what do you want to do? And I had to get to that point where I had to say to myself, you know what, I have to not really worry or look at what people think or what people are doing, and try to use that to kind of gauge how I move, but really just follow, like you said, that gut feeling, that feeling inside that, okay, this is the next step to take, basically. And that's exactly how I've been moving with Basketball Nation, because people may ask me, oh, why have you created a team, why have you created that? But then really, they don't really know that I don't want to create a team yet. Maybe I want to actually create an actual league in the UK to to counter whatever leaks are currently here at the moment. So that's the way my mind works as well. And also in regards to the color stuff, I used to hate black, but as you can see, I'm wearing black right now. Because when I started even looking at design and like sitting next to designers when they're creating logos and things like that, black was always that color that just made things look clean, pristine, and amazing. And yeah, just started falling in love with it. So yeah, that's great.
Yeah, when like you can't go wrong there.
Yeah, definitely. My brother here is enjoying the conversation, by the way, because he's also into fashion, so this is great for him as well.
What's your brother's name?
Casey.
Casey, I'm glad you're there. And just not just talking into my computer, you know.
No man, it's lit. It's good to hear you.
I'm just going to go into another question now, and this is around obviously what you're currently doing at Adidas at the moment. Obviously, Adidas is one of the biggest brands, biggest brands in the world, especially when it comes to sports and footwear, etc. They're very known for collaborations as well, which is how I really think a lot of brands should be moving right now in terms of collaboration and partnerships. And that's something that we do here at Basketball Nation as well. For me, my question is, how do these partnerships influence your design approach as well? And like, it would be great to kind of even share some experiences that you've pretty much embraced and had during those partnerships outside with Adidas and other brands as well, or individuals.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I can't get too much in the specifics,
so, sure.
But each partnership is unique. That's the one thing, having done in my past job and in my current one, like worked between scopes of streetwear brands to individuals, you know, like celebrity, just call them like endorsements, but like really lines of product or represent them. I think you have to be engaged creatively enough to push the envelope of what you're trying to do.
Yeah.
But you also have to dislocate your ego from the result. As a creative, because you want to put it's really hard to make something good without putting a lot of yourself into it.
Yeah.
But like, not one of those shoes was a Marc V collab shoe, right? They represent the ethos of maybe a different brand, a different person, a different face. So you have, like, you know, you have to be able to mold that empathy feeling, that gut feeling towards the taste of the tastemaker working with.
Yeah.
And it's really about bringing their vision to life. And like, where the creative part comes in is like, if they have, let's say like it's a beacon or a lighthouse that they're sending us towards, like for me, it's like navigating the specific waves to get there, right? It's a bit more like solving for the ask, not trying to create the bigger vision. Sometimes there's room for that. Every partner is different. There's like the level of input that comes directly from me would differ. And then the big thing too is like, these projects are huge, so huge teams, you know. For instance, like when I did Cardi B project, we tried to land the shoe for her birthday. When we signed the contract, I think we had like less than 10 months to design a shoe, use a compound the brand had never used before, develop, go to production. So we had to get really creative, not only in the design of it, but also in the way that we presented it to her, because like we had to have her approve these designs to go to production before we were able to have a sample in hand. So it's always like, I like that space because as someone who has like ADHD, just like every day is a different challenge. Like if you're in line, it's a bit more structured and regimented, and there's like basically like there is no lulls in what I did. It's very exhausting too, so it's a balance. So I think that is the thing with working with partnerships, is just like it requires creative flexibility. And just like really, you know, I often would call myself the like master firefighter for dumpster fire, because these projects, it's like we put these constraints on ourselves, and they would always be kind of crazy projects, you know. I remember working on Cardi B, like just comes to me like the project came like a week early. I had already booked some travel to go to like a vendor show in Colorado. So I'm like in the conference hall of the outdoor retailer, and I'm like sitting in the stairs, just like, you know, get an email like the VP of product like doesn't like the direction. We need to make some tweaks. I need to see versions of this so that we can like move forward. And it had to be like, so I'm like sitting in the stairs, like sending sketches, taking photos with my phone. Like I don't even have a real sketchbook. So I'm like doing this with like asking vendors for pieces of paper that I can like doodle on it, but it has to be good enough to show people at a high level. Like, I mean, these get been done with like design markers. They were done with whatever I had in my bag. It was just like a Bic and some highlighters. And so that's where it's like, just, okay, how can I solve this, right? Like it's not like, oh, what's the idea? You know, if I had an infinite amount of time, I would do it this way, this way, this way. It was like, I don't have infinite time. It's very MacGyver. It's just like, get the best possible results with like, you know, what you, almost like Master Chef, you know, like here's what you get, you know, now make a 3-star dish.
Your answer is quite amazing, and that what you said is pretty much the life of a lot of creators as well. Not even just creators, but people who just are almost kind of passionate in terms of what they do. Because if you weren't passionate about what you do, I don't think you would have even gone to find different things to really design and send designs through, whether it's a job or a project or whatever. Like if you're not passionate about it, you wouldn't do that. And for you, because you love what you do, you're gonna make it work. So when you spoke about solution, about finding a solution, you're not always thinking. It makes me think that you're not always thinking, oh my days, like how can we get this done in 10 months? You're thinking, okay, cool. What's the steps now that we can take to make this work out in 10 months? Because you already mentioned that to put a shoot out, you need about minimum 18 months, if I'm correct. So 10 months already is quite a short time. So the fact that you're thinking solution is quite powerful, because one thing that I always like to not preach or more teach to a lot of young people and people in general, and something that I've had to learn myself in the last year, is always be a solutions person. Never be a person that complains or blames someone else. Always be a solutions person. If someone, because I can imagine that if someone wasn't doing their job in that process, you wouldn't just ignore it. You would have been like, okay, cool, I'm gonna take that on now because we need to get this done. So you actually found a way to get it done, and which is quite inspiring as well. So yeah, thank you for that. That was quite interesting to know.
There was something interesting about what you just said, though. It's like, yes, solutions are important, and yes, like that's how my brain works. But also, you there's like phases in your career. there's like building, but there's also like, I'm in a maintenance part. Like I want to be in this industry long term. I'm trying to get to more a position of leadership within the design community.
Yeah.
And so like I'm in very much, especially now that my son has joined the world. It's like, okay, I can't burn it all down anymore. Because there's going to be a project after that. There's going to be a project after that. I've worked on some projects that just like were not as, like lined up for success. And with, this person resigns or no, like there's a lot more falls on you, and you have to be able to like, you won't be, if you see the road to success, but what it is like your own physical health or sanity, you have to be able to, that comes with confidence. That's not a thing you do when you're like fresh out of school. It's more a thing you do like, I've done this 10 times, like whether I, give it 110%, work on the weekends, ruin my family life. What am I going to get out of this? Not but is the project going to even be better? Will people make a difference? I think it's important to like ask yourself these questions, because then when you do go hard, if you're doing an exhibition game, you're not going to risk injury, right? Like, and that's where it's like, when I started my career, like I went hard at the amount of things that I like killed myself over. That just like, it's like the harder I worked, the faster it got put in the garbage. And that just like, what it did is that like it affected my ability to care. And like love, it would have to muster the energy to get into it, and then I would go super hard again, and it would die again. And it just became this crazy roller coaster ride. So I've become better at just managing that expectation for myself, because I think if you want, there's a lot of like entrepreneurial podcasts out there, right? Who are like, you gotta work harder, you gotta 24/7, and like, you can, a couple of years, like for instance, my wife and I, we bought a property when we were in Boston, and it was like a major like renovation. So I'm like working 8 hours, biking home. The second I get home, my overalls are on, I'm doing drywall, I'm doing this like till like 10 p.m. every night. Like, that's a really good way to like hurt yourself. And then to lose the love of what you're trying to do. So for like a long-term thing, it's like, you gotta go hard in the paint, but you gotta know where the paint ends. Like when you're off the court, you gotta know, like, even star players, like, don't play the whole game. Like, know when you're able. And when you're not, like I used to, when I was younger, when I was in between projects, I was like anxious. I only have so much time to design. I was like, oh, side project, this, that. Now I do those side projects when they energize me. And I'm like, oh, I want to do something that's not footwear. I want to do, I've got like 2 days. I don't have too many responsibilities right now. I can go do this thing. What can I get done in 2 days? That's like usually how I operate it. And then I make sure that those things like reinvigorate me, don't drain me. So that it's really important to take time to like heal yourself. Especially if you're gonna go really hard. Like the best athletes with the longest longevity, we're thinking like Kobe, LeBron, but like, I'm thinking, I mean, in biathlon, there's a couple names like Bjorn Dahlen, like he retired in his 40s. Like those guys, like Tom Brady is a great example. Like you know, he was the greatest because he played for a long time, but what he focused on, they all focused on the same thing, it's recovery.
Yeah, yeah.
It's like, you want to go, like if you're burning it down all the time, you cannot show up and just clean the floor.
Yeah. It's true. It's true. It's that, and that's for everything. Like even if you burn out a car or a machine, it's not gonna last very long, is it? it's eventually gonna break down. You're gonna have to take it to the mechanic or someone to fix it again, and maybe sometimes it can't be fixed. And sometimes it might take a while for it to be back to its normal state as well, if you're not looking after it the right way. So yeah, so I totally agree with that, and I think especially in the UK, and this is kind of bringing it back to sports as well, especially in the UK, because basketball is not really, it's the second most played sport here, but it's not as popular as it is in the States and some European countries. So a lot of the guys here really go hard. So if you ever come to London and you go to the outdoor courts, the popular ones, it's packed because everyone's trying to be better. Everyone is trying to contact schools in the States to come and play there. Everyone's trying to find the money to actually fly over there to play there as well. So it's like people are doing things that sometimes it gets to a point where you fall out of love for it. I was one of them. Because I saw everyone around me trying to go to America to play, trying to play for this pro team in Europe, and I wanted the same thing. Everyone wants to be in the best leagues in the world when you play basketball, whether you're in the UK, whether you're in Africa, anywhere in the world, and you put the work in, but then you realize that sometimes, like when you get older, you realize that, okay, you're putting the work in, but were you putting the right work in? And were you also planning of what's next after that as well? Because a lot of people don't think that. They always think about, oh yeah, basketball is going to be my life. This, what I'm doing now is going to be my life. But then when you have family, when you have kids, it's completely different now. Completely different now. So the plan changes really, or you have to modify it, should I say. So yeah, and I'm sure that that's where the stage you're at now, in terms of your journey and where you're headed to in terms of your career and stuff like that. And it's really, really powerful to know that as well, because at the same time, the loved ones are the most important thing as well. The journey is still good. The obsession for our craft is still very, very much important. But now is how do we regulate that and how do we manage that to make sure it benefits us, it benefits the ones that we're teaching as well, in terms of your junior designers, but it also benefits the family as well. So I'm looking forward to seeing you in that leadership role, because I believe that when you get to that point, is the people that are important now. And because you're going to focus on the people will create the best results. So yeah, so that was quite an interesting answer. That's how I understood it. To a point as well, which is great. So yeah, correct me if I'm wrong in anything I've said as well. Really.
No, it made me think, I mean, my son's only 3 months old, but in the time of my wife's pregnancy, the last year has been a real time of reflection for me. Mm-hmm. The biggest thing that I've come out of it is like, I've always been a live fast, die hard kind of guy. I just, even I broke my wrist recently and had to get surgery and stuff, and it was very inconvenient because my baby, it's hard to only be able to carry a baby with one arm.
Yeah.
But I'm still not totally a different person. But in that mindset, it was always like the cost didn't matter to only the results meant. And from my racing days, so maybe I sacrificed certain parts of my personality or demeanor to really kind of sharpen certain tools in my toolbox. And but what it means is some of the other tools have become dull. And what I've been working on more, and as I grow as a person, I realize my knives are sharp, and they could get sharper, but like, would the cut be better? No, like, the difference between a chef's knife that gets used every day and like a perfectly Japanese, like from the shop, obsessively sharp knife, like there's a level where getting like fine tuning that is not going to make a difference anymore. Like, if you're cutting meat and the thing can slice through a thin piece of paper with no weight, like it doesn't matter anymore. Like it's not that you'd be better working on different skills. So first it's like finding the skills you want to refine, become an expert per the 10,000 hours. But like I'm at the point where I've put more than 10,000 hours, like let's call it like 50,000 hours of design, and like, but now I have like these other tools that kind of were set aside, and I'm like looking at my son and I'm like, oh well, if I can't be when I'm at home, if I can't not unplug, I can't go back and go hard. Like I'm not as good. Or if my team is like, oh cool, you did the shoe, but like no one wants to work with me again, then I don't want to be one-hit wonders. Like it's all about building a team, because like really creating things is about a lot of why I got into this industry is like I wanted to hang out with the people that did this. A lot of it is about being part of something. And like I'm very proud. It took me a long time to become part of this sneaker community, but like when I met Daniel Bailey, who runs Concept Kicks for the first time, actually in LA a few years ago, it was like a big tipping point in my head. It just felt like, oh, I've arrived at the table. So those things are important, but also it's like, okay, once you reach those milestones, it's important to like be introspective and reevaluate, because what brought me here is not gonna take me where I'm going next. And if I want to keep going, the road's very long. So it's it's very much a marathon, not a sprint. And you can't just sprint to everything.
You can't. It's quite interesting. I'm actually excited about this conversation that we're having, because like what you just said about you just wanted to hang out with people that were in the sneaker community just like you. So for me, this podcast is pretty much more for me, but I'm sharing it with the world, and it's me being able to have conversations with people that I'm inspired by. Whether it's coming across your portfolio, whether it's maybe seeing your work on Instagram or on YouTube, or maybe you've designed something or created something. So a lot of the people that I've spoken to on the podcast, I think this is episode, I think 11 or 12 now. But there's so much more coming as well with some interesting people, and I'm like, wow, like this is like I'm part of something basically. I'm part of like culture makers and changes within the community of whether it's sports, whether it's entrepreneurship, whether it's sneaker world, whether it's design world. And for me, hearing you say that, I'm like, wow, that's exactly how I also feel as well. But then this is what I've done before with Footwear Nation, where when I started was to provide free indoor basketball sessions for people. Rather than them paying for it, I pay for the courts, or me and my team pay for the courts, and they just come and actually play and get better. So, but that's not going to take me to the next stage. So creating something like this where I can meet people like yourself could take me to the next stage, whether it's now, whether it's 3-5 years from now. We'll see what happens, and then something else will also be developed towards that as well. But there's actually something I will speak to you about after show that you might find interesting as well. But yeah, I wanted to go into what you mentioned earlier on in regards to when your design philosophy and what you pretty much focus on when you actually design sneakers, which is the performance side. I think that's quite interesting for me and resonates with me a lot, being also a basketball player myself. How do you approach that when you come to designing sneakers, and what does that look like for you when it comes to performances, or what does that look like pretty much, especially in the final product itself? The reason why
That's a good question.
Yeah, the reason why I asked this question, because I've actually been doing a survey with a lot of the young guys from 16 to 25 in the UK, in London specifically, on what they look for in sneaker design, and a lot of them have actually said they look at the sneaker and performance. Those were the main ones. So that's one of the reasons why I asked that question.
That's a good question. I mean, the performance of a shoe is actually, when broken down, like, we kind of complexify a lot of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you'll see like the foot bones of a foot in it and stuff, but like everyone's feet are built the same way.
Mm-hmm.
Like they have the same amount of bones and general structure, but every foot, like anthropomorphically, is different.
Yeah.
Ergonomically unique, and the challenge with that is, so my interest in footwear, I always liked footwear, and I could never really wear the shoes I wanted younger, because I have a very wide foot.
Right.
And luckily I'm not like a huge size. My father was like a size 16, so it's just like there's one pair of shoes in the store that fits, and there's one car that he fit in, and so at least I don't have that problem. But it would, for someone who really cared, like I like say skate shoes and stuff, but you know, very like kind of punk rock high schooler. So like there's like a lot of them, like especially on the Van side stuff, are like really narrow. Or chucks and stuff, had to be really broken in for a long period of time. I had to deal with a lot of pain to like wear things fashionable. But also on the performance side, like I would have to get my race boots when I eat modified because they were, my toes near my boots are too small, and I couldn't get a bigger size, and so I had like really, really bad frostbite like every day. And so I really highlighted the importance of comfort. So like comfort is, to me, is base layer. It's not like the goal. A shoe built for comfort, they should all be comfortable.
Yeah.
Obviously, like exceptions to that in the like fashion space, but even a like stiletto, if it were comfortable, would be better. Like no shoe is made worse by being comfortable. No matter how it looks. So that's a baseline. So a lot of my time is spent on shape and last picking. And you know, I recently pulled out the very first shoes I designed that to market. Sold at Reebok, and I put them on to go to, I was like, holy smokes, like these are like so comfortable.
Can you see it?
It was my first, made a lot of assumptions in that, and a lot of them ended up like coming to fruition. Sometimes you make assumptions, you design and you test it, you know, it doesn't always work, you know, sometimes your idea is a little backward. But this one worked, and I was like, wow, these are really comfortable. And I've always tried to keep that. Sometimes you lose the plot a little bit, but comfort is foundational.
Yeah.
Like look at all the like the NBA's, the big players, the guys who like have a lot of weight on them. Like their feet are.
Yeah.
Sorry,
No.
So it's like even those guys could do being as comfortable as possible. That's why we have things like athlete services at all the brands, you know, where they like try to help these guys, because to be an exceptional player, sometimes they have exceptional bodies, which means they're not in norm for sizing or for like, you know. So I think that's really always the foundational, and everything else is supportive. So then you get into technology, right? There's different foams and different upper tech, those things evolved. And sometimes we try stuff and it, you know, works, and sometimes it doesn't. Like, think of like 10 years ago, like running went all knit. Knit's not really performance tech. Like, it's not really supportive. It looks breathable, but it's not, because it absorbs sweat, so it like cultivates bacteria. Like, I have like I love my first pair of like knit running shoes.
They tell
but
you
like I ran in them twice and they just like smelled like a swamp.
Oh damn.
So it just like, sometimes you try stuff and it doesn't work out. So some of those things are trend, but if you make them comfortable, like, you can't fail. And then you do metrics like weight and things like that. There's different ways of measuring comfort. But that was a long rant on comfort.
No, it wasn't. So I was asking, can we see the shoe? Are we allowed to see it?
Yeah, I can go.
Nice.
I actually have a pair like fresh in box to that cap because it felt important. But I was just cleaning up, so this just happened to. But these are like unworn. They still have the paper in them.
Oh, nice.
But I have a pair that I wear, and this was a team effort. I worked with these with like Dustin and Isaac Tunkel, that when we were on the Reebok innovation team. But so there was like a higher end version that did come, that had like a better foam and stuff. But it's like, it's a little bit easier when you're selling shoes like 180 to like hit all the benchmarks. I think why this is so important. Like, this shoe was sold for like $90,
wow.
and it didn't have like crazy new tech. There was just like a lot of little things that made it special. And it was really like the innovation was in the composite, right? It was in the combination of all the elements, the way they were done. They captured the essence of the original Fury designed by Stephen Smith, which is like, at the time, he took all the tech that was in the company, threw it in one shoe, and tried to make a shoe that had like, you know, at the time the shoes had like over 100 pieces. Stitched components, soles and stuff, and try to bring it down to like 30 pieces. So I took that same idea with the rest of the innovation team, and it was like, how do we make it even less pieces? How do we distill the essence of a shoe to as little shoe as possible? So like, this is one of the few shoes I've ever worked on that is like, it is single layer. There is no lining. It is asymmetrical. There's only, it's kind of exoskeleton, like the reinforcements are on the outside. There's like no counter in it, just a tiny little bit of foam, a really nice package. There's the top is one piece, but it's stretched. Like, everything was very considered. The sole is like partially decoupled and opened up. It's very lightweight. It's very soft and comfortable. And then the like sock liner is also like perforated. So like super light. They're very, like, I was working out with them this week. I was like really shocked at how comfortable they were. And because I'd forgotten. I just like assumed I did these like 10 years ago. They wouldn't be like, or they wouldn't hold up, but they did. What it did too is that like, we had to, when you're trying to eliminate, like, design by subtraction, everything that is on here doesn't look necessarily like a shoe was designed at the time. Because if it deserved to be on there, it deserved to be celebrated. Like, that's one of the reasons why, like, the webbing goes all the way down and is like a multi-strap, like, military-inspired design. The lace is thicker. The color blocking is quite bold. Because it was the idea was like, if it deserves to be on the shoe, it deserves to be celebrated. That's why loops are like kind of oversized and off center. It's to really draw attention to every piece because there isn't 100 pieces. This shoe is like 7 pieces. So that was a really, really proud moment. And then so I'm glad I think it holds up.
I was gonna ask
you never know.
10 years.
They come and what. But
one thing I learned from what you just said in regards to how you designed the shoe and how you kind of broke it down from using how Stephen Smith designed the Fury was to bring it down to 30, and then now you're saying 7 pieces. So for me, it's almost like looking at something and always thinking simplify as well. Because sometimes too much doesn't mean it's an amazing piece. But sometimes when you simplify it to as much as you can, you create something that's completely brand new, completely innovative, completely great, basically. And which is almost kind of like the approach that you're taking to life right now as well, what we spoke about earlier on in terms of what your focuses are now, where it's not going too hard with no focus and no vision, but actually going hard, knowing when the paint is, but at the same time still making sure that every base is also covered, from family to career to life to health, etc., which is pretty much amazing. So I've really enjoyed this conversation, and I wish we can actually go a lot further, but I know we will have more conversations. But then I do have some questions to ask you which are not in line with sneakers and not in line with the title of the podcast, but is always questions I ask all my guests. So the first one is start, bench, trade, MJ, Kobe, LeBron.
Start, bench, MJ, Kobe, LeBron. When are they playing? Like, are they this era?
All in their prime.
But they're playing like this era?
I would say, yeah, do you know what, I wouldn't even say this era, I would say the 2010s era.
Come on. I don't know. It's interesting because so I'm not like a huge basketball head. Like, you talk to the guys on the basketball team, like I know like superficially, obviously know about these 3 guys, but what I know about them, like, right? They're complete zealots, all 3 of them. I think LeBron is like, he from the get-go was going for legacy, so he was always like really young, arrogant, but he's quite humble for someone with his achievements. Kobe was kind of like a quiet killer. Now he like, MJ's actually quite bombastic. Like, there's a reason, like, when I worked at Reebok, they celebrated like Iverson stepping over him, because it's like, if you're gonna talk the talk, you have to walk the walk. And he did, but the few times you stumble, people like, people notice. I mean, I was so young when he was playing, so I would say MJ. Like, I would start MJ. And I mean, let's do it, because I'm like, the game, I think I don't know enough to like really pull the stats of which would, I think I would go, I would start MJ. I would bench LeBron because I've seen him the most play.
Okay.
Yeah, and then what was the start? Bench
and trade.
Yeah, and then
trade Kobe.
And trade Kobe? That's crazy. I live in LA. You can't trade Kobe.
Yeah, that's true.
Those are fighting for it.
It's like a sin.
Okay, I guess. I mean, I haven't seen Kobe play that much.
Yeah.
So, yeah. That's crazy.
I'm loving this answer because I don't know.
Okay, so, yeah. I mean, start Kobe, bench Michael, trade LeBron. Okay. But just out of like selfish, like.
No, that's perfect. That's perfect. Yeah. I there's no right or wrong answer because it's nice to see people's answers based on their own perspective as well, which is great. So for someone that doesn't super follow the game, your answer is still valid, if you know what I mean, based on yours. Because I've had people answer completely differently as well. Someone actually said they'll trade Kobe because they can get so many really good assets around MJ and LeBron.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, LeBron's probably the best team player of the like the story's kind of like, I mean, MJ was a good captain, but I don't know that he was a good team player. Like, doesn't build a team. He's like, you're gonna keep up.
Yeah.
You know, which is like an approach. It's very military, but I don't know if that holds up with these young guns today.
Yeah.
Everyone wants to be a star.
Yeah.
Kobe's like, he just doesn't need the other guys. Like, he doesn't, you know.
Yeah.
He's just like, the grip between him and Shaq was like pretty cool in the sense that like, it just is very, like, he's an assassin, right? His moniker is well owned.
Yeah.
It's really interesting. It's a really great question because it's like, you can't like deny the cultural relevance of the Jordan shoes, right?
Of course.
Let's talk my world.
Yeah.
Like, but like, if you like dissect the Tinker designs, like the early Jordans and stuff, like they're cool, but like they're not particularly good basketball shoes.
Yeah.
Like by today's standards, like they're ankle bone.
Yeah.
They're compared to what they were is novel, incredibly novel and unique. If you look at some of the shoes that were created for Kobe or LeBron, like equally novel, just like the space has evolved to expect that novelty, so like proportionately not, well, we're seeing now that the Kobe shoes are like really making a difference, so really interesting. So like if Michael had played in the LeBron eras, would anyone have, like, you know, it would be some like, the culture was ripe for something like that to happen. So there would have been, you know, another shoe that would have taken that space. And would that Jordan line make a difference?
Yeah.
Not in that era.
Not in that era at all. Yeah.
Like, the Jordans from that era, like whatever, the 20-somethings, like who can even like name all of them, like be like that's that one, you know? Oh, I don't like to play those kind of thought exercises.
I like that.
Because like I don't to work on that team. I work on the like cultural relevancy team, right? So it's all about like cultural capital all the time.
Amazing. And okay, next one is top 3 sneakers. I was gonna say top 5, but I thought that would give you more options, so I reduced it to 3.
I'm not really like a sneakerhead, like traditional, like box. I am a design aficionado, so when I like shoes, it's like it's to be worn, right? It's to be, and so it means also like my taste like changes.
But I like that as well.
I have very few things I've saved. When I left Reebok, I gave like 3 boxfuls of like, some of it was like the mid-month collab shoes, like some stuff like, I just was like, well, I'm not gonna wear them. I would like them to go to someone who's gonna wear them. Like, because I'm on the function side of things.
Right.
So I want them to be used. It's like disheartening. I mean, like, I understand collectability, but it's disheartening if they don't see the light of day, because that's what they're made for.
It would still be great to know. Yeah, it would still be great to know top 3 that you like.
So from emotionally, let's go. So number 1, I'm gonna play my own music. I'm gonna be that guy. And I designed a shoe called the Zig Kinetica 2, and then we did a trail version of that shoe, which was the second version of the Zig Edge. So Zig Kinetica 2 Edge. The reason that's my favorite shoe is because I got to design the shoe. I designed every aspect of it and co-designed the outsole with my good friend David Filler. So I got to collaborate with Vibram on that shoe. I got to collaborate with Vortex, ASAP Nas, like a bunch of really cool partnerships.
Do you have this on your Instagram page? I think I saw it.
Yeah. I have a few. And there's like several versions of the shoe, so I've done different collabs on the shoe. But the reason is like, it's a shoe that I wanted to make since college, like just this like kind of approach shoe. It's important to me because it's something I try to achieve. And I got to do it with friends. When I was on the Zig team at Reebok, we had like a really awesome crew with Michael Hesterberg and Zach, and Brian, and like we had just like such a squad. Like Joey Camus, who's like kind of a dude now, really awesome designer. It was just like such a team. I didn't even know how good we had it, at the time. So did that, worked with my friend David Filler on the sole, and like because of that shoe we brought in the Vibram partnership at Reebok. It just means a lot to me. So for like personal reasons, that shoe. Then I really like a shoe that I bought when I was an intern at Reebok, but an Adidas shoe, the White Mountaineering See You Laters. They are, I have a green pair.
Nice.
I still wear them. I try not to wear them too much because I don't want the knit to tear. They're like knit to the ankle. They're like really the first ones, the first collab, because they did like 2 or 3 versions of them. Just the slick knit upper with the seal tooling.
Nice.
I love that shoe. Nice. It was just, it was great. It's very cool. And then. And I can wear it with like anything. I have very much that like military workwear color.
That's not, I can see it.
I pull them out with anything. I always get compliments.
Nice.
And then the last shoe, I think it has to be the Y3 Casa High. That shoe came out when I was in college. It was like a real like they just re-released it, and I couldn't afford it when it came out, and I don't wear them often, but I got a black pair of white tubular outsole. I absolutely love them. There's a few reasons why. First of all, they were a big part of my like awakening to like this like higher fashion collaboration space. I was in college, I didn't really have the budget, so I didn't like tease myself with things I couldn't afford. Like I was very much a like Chuck's guy. I could just go through pairs. The designer of that shoe, Aurelian Longo, is the design director at Y3. He's just an example of like longevity. Just a powerhouse designer, French designer. He's been at Y3 the whole time. Wow. He's just like, I just remember seeing his sketches and work when I was in school, and I was like, that is what I want to be doing. Like his ethos is very like, there's a brutalist, like Bauhausian approach to his design language that I really appreciate. And it was like, I saw that shoe come out and observed like the Tet Ninja, the acronym, the like that shoe really drove like Rick becoming incredibly like foundational to everyone's wardrobe.
Nice.
Like to me, I tie it back to that shoe. Like the even like the shape of the Roshi is that same kind of era. Like the Yeezy 350, like I see red lines coming back to that shoe. And it was so different it came out. Like how minimalist it was. Like this shoe is tied to it. Like that shoe is just like a simple, some straps, a really simple textile, really awful to drive in because the tubular gets stuck on the pedals of my truck. But
I see. I'm looking at a picture of them. They look cold.
So yeah, you know what? That might be my number one.
Wow. Okay, so you're changing it. So what would number one be now? Number three?
Yeah, sweet 1 and 3.
Okay, cool.
And put my shit at the end, just like it. But I like, and I wear those shoes. That's the fun part, you know. There's a couple, you know, down my list. You know, respect to the other brands. You know, like. You have to respect the legacy of guys like Steve Smith, Christian Trescher, Tinker Hatfield, like those, like Peter Fogg's a guy who doesn't get mentioned as much in that list, but I think is even like should be at the top of it. You know, I'm less in love. I like the 4s and like, but for like a Tinker, for me it's a classic Tinker shoe. My favorite is gonna be the Air Moab.
Okay.
You know, also re-released when I was an intern, so like those shoes, the influence of like my own molding of taste in this like space matters. So, you know, I love the Moab. I have a pair, and so super wearable.
Cool. We can actually speak about sneakers all day long, trust me. Okay, so my next question is, do you have a question for me?
Yeah, I mean, so there's something you mentioned earlier about like finding. It's like you were, you know, you've created your foundation, your theme creation based off of like a gray space. A lot of my own creative process is kind of like spending the time to think about things and finding what's missing, right? And doing the thing that you're missing. A lot of we talked about earlier, where it's like what motivates me to do things if I have a nagging feeling about it. I find that the nagging feeling is worse if I have the feeling and I missed the boat and I was like, I should have done it. Then when I've done it and missed the mark. So I take way more shots than I used to. I see a lot of that in what you are doing here. So I'm curious what motivated you to do that and in parallel, like the podcast, like what brought you to, you know, kind of like focusing your personal growth towards those younger guys, kind of sharing your love with them? Like, ultimately, I personally find that those things are kind of like, sometimes it's to give back, but there's a certain, we get something out of it, right? There's a selfish pursuit in wanting to mentor and stuff, because it's energizing, it's great. And I'm curious what led you to create this platform.
So I have a mentor, and I met him 9 years ago. And the way he's changed my life and a few other people, including my wife as well, has been nothing but groundbreaking, to the point that we all truly believe that we will, how can I put it, that whatever industry that we choose, we can actually be the leaders in those industries, basically. But then it's not just thinking that that's just going to happen, but then going back to the question that you asked, what motivates me is people, the importance of people and being able to help people. So 2 years ago and before that, I was chasing the whole wanting to work in fashion. So I did some styling, commercial and celebrity, artist styling as well, music videos, all that kind of stuff. Assistant stylist as well. So I actually worked briefly with Zoe Costello. She actually lives in LA as well, so she was styling the Migos and Tiger and a few other people as well. So I was doing that, but then it got to a point where I started thinking, you know what, I'm not going to chase what I enjoy anymore. It's too comfortable. I need to do something that's uncomfortable. And as human beings, sometimes it's always uncomfortable to connect with people. Especially nowadays, and it's always uncomfortable to help people as well, because you always think someone's going to take you for granted, or someone's going to use you, or you'll never get a result from it that benefits you. So I had to come to that mindset of like, you know what, I'm going to help people because I love people, I love the world, I love everything about humanity. If it breaks me down, me doing this, for example, if me helping people puts me in prison, I'm happy that it's put me in prison because I'm doing what I love doing, and I'm doing it out of love in my heart for people. And what I realized that I can actually apply that to something that I do enjoy, which is basketball, and using basketball as that medium to connect with people, especially the younger generation. Because I knew that when I was playing when I was younger, when you love a sport, you just want to play it, and you want to play with your friends, you want to be a part of a team, part of something. So that motivated me to even start doing things like doing the indoor sessions, because in the UK it's not that easy to get facilities to play indoors. And summertime is easy because you can play outdoors, not like LA where it's kind of hot all year round, or most of the year. During the winter, no one can play outdoors here because it starts to snow, it gets cold, it starts raining. So we decided, you know what, when I was younger, I was paying crazy amounts as a 16, 15-year-old to play indoors, and maybe I might get 20 minutes, 30 minutes playing time from a 2-hour session. So we decided, let's organize a 3-hour session for free. We cover the costs by any means necessary, whether it's selling our clothes, whether it's getting a part-time job, doing odd jobs here and there, and bringing the money together and just paying for it, so that these young guys and ladies can actually come and not have to worry about paying for it, and just focus on just what they love, which is basketball. So when they go to their respective teams, they're carrying on that same feeling, that same empowerment of just continue to get better. And then now some of those young guys have actually started doing the same thing. So they've now started to do their own little sessions where they actually offer it to other people for free. Some of them still do charge as well, but like a little bit of money, which is not bad. And then that circled back to, okay, what's next after that? How can I continue to be sustainable with this? And then that's where the podcast idea came about, where I can actually speak to. It started off being speaking to people within the basketball world, and then meeting a gentleman who owns a sneaker company that also got a partnership with Chicago Bulls, made me realize, oh, I can actually expand this into more people now. So now speaking to sneaker designers, a footwear designer like yourself, speaking to people who run businesses which is still in line with sports, which is still in line with basketball, speaking to people that actually are mental health specialists for athletes as well. So it's almost like I decided, let me create my own library of conversations that I can actually go back to myself and actually learn and study, but then let me also give that to whoever would like to listen to or like to watch as well. So my motivation is helping people to kind of narrow it down and helping people to become the best that they can be, really. That's the simplest answer I can give for that, yeah.
That's amazing how much like community is a big part of everything we do.
Yeah, 100%.
Like finding a community, I think in this era with a lot of people feel like they're missing that, you know, and we have to celebrate the people in our world that create spaces for other people to be a part of.
Yeah.
You know, it's really important, I think. In general, you know, I've been in run clubs and stuff like that, and it's just like, just having that sense of belonging is just so important in anything you do. And the more we celebrate that, as opposed to just like, the achievement is like, not to be just like, you know, it's very 1990s to be just like, if you're not first, you're at Ricky Bobby, like,
yeah.
But also, that's one part of it, but it's just like it's, you know, it's being part of something. It's really important. It gives you so much energy, and so we have to, I think it's important to celebrate those of us who choose to be beacons for culture and community.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Right, last but not least question, is there anyone that you would like to see on this podcast, on this show?
Oh, well, I got one of those beacons, you know, one of those people. I mean, there's two people that come to mind that are just like, in my world, there's a lot of really influential, great designer people. Like for me, I don't like particularly rebroadcast other people's stuff. Like my own channel is more about my own creativity. But there's two guys out there really, I think, that are like putting other people up. Daniel Bailey is one of those. Okay. He's in London. He's
Concept Kicks.
Founded Concept Kicks, and he's a designer. He's a really cool cat. Like that guy is like, he's like frustratingly zen, because I'm like really, if I like it, right, I'm like I talk a lot, and I'm like, he's just like really cool and calm, and but very inspiring guy, very creative, and he really, like, I wouldn't have the platform I have now if it wasn't for the platform that he created.
Wow, okay.
And then there's my great friend David Fillar, who used to work at Vibram now, or at In-State. He has his own podcast where he has been promoting all sorts of creatives, but not just footwear designers, also like artists and stuff. And he had me on his podcast, and a lot of our mutual friends and stuff. And he's one of those guys who's like, his Instagram is so much more about like connecting with the whole community. He brought us together early in the pandemic when everyone needed to connect. You know, we created this footwear community group when Clubhouse was kind of, we haven't kept up with it, but it was like when we all really needed to connect, you know, with Suzanne Engel and Helen Kirkham, and like just these powerhouses, and it was open, you know, to non-footwear people, to stuff, and it was just about like sharing love and just, you know, connecting. So yeah, those two guys. But the list is just like,
That's dope.
You know?
Yeah.
Right.
I like that. I like that. I will reach out to them as well. But if you can ever make an intro, that would be even greater as well. I think I'll be honored, definitely. But yeah, we're done with the conversation, but not done with the conversation moving forward. Just for this episode. But Marc, I appreciate you taking that time to speak to us, to teach us, to inspire us. And we look forward to seeing everything that you're doing and you're going to do now in the future as well. And we're wishing you every single success with family, with your career. And yeah, and hopefully we do keep in touch as well. And yeah, thank you very much, and I appreciate you coming on the show.
Thank you so much, Coach David. I gotta go back to, because my daddy duty shift just started.
No worries. I'll send you an email anyway after this, and then I'll just reach out to you. But yeah, thank you everyone for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel, and also you can also listen to this podcast on all the podcast platforms, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, etc. But yeah, leave us a comment, let us know what you think, and yeah, hope to see you guys soon. Coach David out. Take care, everyone. Peace.